The CDC says Americans should stay put this holiday season, only celebrate with people in your own household. It appears, though, a lot of people are not listening to that advice. AAA says as many as 50 million people are expected to travel for Thanksgiving. That's down a bit from last year, but not nearly where it would be if people were listening to the CDC's guidance. While overall numbers are still high, airlines are taking a big hit. AAA expects air travel will be down by nearly 50%. For more on this, I want to bring in Sara Nelson. She's the president of the Association of Flight Attendants. Sara, thanks for joining us. 2.4 million people are expected to fly this holiday here on Thanksgiving. I am not traveling on Thanksgiving, and it breaks my heart. But I know that a lot of people are, and that the airlines have worked very hard to put safeguards in place. Tell us about those safeguards.
Yeah, well, travel is down about 50% and revenue is down 75%. So it's a very difficult time. But what we have been working to do, our unions with the airlines, with no help from the government, I should say, is to put safety measures in place so that it's the most possible controlled environment where you cannot properly socially distance. So masks are critically important. If people are wearing masks throughout the flight, and wearing them properly, it has been shown that the risk of the spread of the virus is very low because there is also the added airflow and HEPA filtration on board the aircraft, which keeps this safer than in any sort of office building or restaurant that you could go to today. So we also have other layers of security, including one contact service, so that we are not spending a lot of time interacting with people in the aisles, and also giving a lot of people things to take their masks off for, because it's so critically important that they keep those on.
Well, passengers are only on flights for a few hours. But for flight attendants like yourself, it's the job. Does that place you at an additional risk, and have airlines addressed this increased risk?
Look, there is an additional risk for flight attendants, but also for the public. It's critically important that we have safety procedures in place for the crew, because we are the most likely to come in contact with other people, not just on the aircraft, but on traveling to and from the airport or going to and from hotels where we're staying between flights. So it's critically important that the airlines continue to do what they have been doing in working with us on mandating those mask policies, on having social distancing away from our jump seats, making sure that we are not doing a service where we are interacting repeatedly with the passengers, and also in a position where we're handing things to people and then still staying there in the aisle while they take their masks off to take a drink or to eat. All of those things are very important for keeping crews safe. We also, of course, have a lot of work with the airlines on very liberal sick leave policies, so that if people are sick, they can stay home and have that pay protection, and a very clear set of contact tracing within the airline industry. Now, all of this is very, very hard without government support, because as you can imagine, those financial stresses of being down 75% in revenue make it very difficult to make good public health decisions. So that government support on payroll support was so important to help us work with our airlines to make those good decisions, keep them in place, and also allow individual people in the airline industry to make good decisions for themselves, because they don't have, because they're not worried about being able to keep a roof over their head.
Yeah, well, as we all know, Sara, thousands of flight attendants were furloughed last month after federal aid for the industry expired. Your union represents 50,000 workers. I'm wondering if you can tell us what you're hearing about the struggles that flight attendants are facing, and how do you think the federal government should be responding?
Well, look, the federal government has totally failed us here. They've totally failed the airline workers and the rest of the country. We have a cliff of many things falling off in December, including the extended unemployment insurance, the expanded definition of that, 12 million people at risk of losing unemployment. But flight attendants specifically, we had a jobs and infrastructure plan. We were the best possible template for every other industry. We got this in place because we are highly unionized, and it was actually the union plan that went forward and was part of the CARES Act. Unlike any other industry, what it does is it provides for 70% of the payroll, keeps people in their jobs connected to their healthcare, even if there's not work for them, and then also caps executive compensation, bans stock buybacks and dividends, and requires the airlines to continue service to all of the communities that it was serving before. All of this jobs and infrastructure plan ended on September 30th, and that's why we saw mass furloughs. So we have flight attendants who have been in the front lines of coronavirus from the beginning, who now don't have access to health care after serving as essential workers and don't have access to a paycheck. There is no reason to do this, and it's really concerning for the rest of the economy, because that means that we're not paying our rent check, we're not paying our utilities, we're cutting off our cable bill, and we're also not paying those taxes that it gives an added stress on those state and local budgets that are already under so much stress.
Sara, we've been pinning a lot of hope on what life is going to look like after these vaccines make it out into the general public. I'm wondering what you think the future of air travel looks like post-COVID. Do you think that the industry is going to bounce right back as soon as we have that critical mass of people who have been vaccinated and the pandemic is under control? Or do you think that there's permanent changes?
Yeah, no, I mean, the airline industry is the backbone of the economy. And in fact, actually, our economy is suffering because of the virus. So we've got to get the virus contained and under control. The only way we can get a distribution of that vaccine is actually to get this payroll support program in place now, because the airlines need to get the jumbo jets back up in the air. That requires maintenance. That requires currency for the pilots to fly that. That requires flight attendants to staff that. And that doesn't happen overnight. So the vaccine will be distributed on these jumbo jets. All of them are sitting on the ground right now. So that is why it's so critically important to make sure that we have the airline industry able to participate in that distribution. The sooner we can get everyone vaccinated and get back to a place where people are willing to go to restaurants and resorts are able to open, casinos are able to open, we're able to travel to the rest of the world because we'll regain the trust of the rest of the world to be able to travel there too. That's when our industry will bounce back. And I will tell you that it is our experience that the more that people have access to people virtually, the more that technology improves, the more that people want to be together. Even those businesses who are saying, hey, maybe we can cut down on hotel costs and expenses for people traveling. The first time someone gets a business deal because they went there in person, all that's going to be out the door and people will be back together. So we're very confident that this will bounce back, but it's only going to bounce back fast if the airline industry is propped up right now. And when I say the airline industry, I'm talking about the people, the planes, and the routes, not those executives. They're going to be fine. But those jobs and infrastructure have to be in place in order to support the American public.
All right, Sara Nelson, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.